That evening after supper, I felt overheated, sweat drenched my back. I decided to take a shower to make myself more comfortable. The bathroom was tiny, and the warm water on my skin felt kind and lovely. After finishing my shower, I changed into a soft beige V-neck dress with a long zipper in the back, which I typically wear at home. I walked into the bedroom and put it on. When I pushed up the zipper, I discovered it was stuck in the center. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it up. At first, I glanced around, confused, and planned to phone my husband for assistance, but as I entered the living room, the low light was on. Only my father-in-law was seated in the chair. Hearing my footsteps, he looked up, his eyes somewhat shocked. "Where are your spouse and father?" I inquired, my voice somewhat hesitant. "Aiden just left, most likely to go shopping." "Is anything wrong?" His voice was calm. I bit my lip. In this case, there were no other options. I talked clumsily. "My skirt zipper is stuck. Can you help me?" Hearing that, he sat down his teacup on the table, got up, and moved closer. "Let me see." When he stood just behind me, the space between us felt quite near to me. His breath gently brushed the back of my neck, making me uneasy. He carefully grabbed the zipper. Frowning slightly, he responded, "It seems to be stuck in the fabric," and began pulling it. I heard a little click, and everything occurred too fast. The zipper slipped down hard, and the soft silk skirt dropped to my feet in an instant. I stood there transfixed for a brief moment. I experienced a sense of timelessness. The breeze from the window blasted in, leaving my skin chilled. "Hello everyone, my name is Leah, and I am 28 years old. I've been married to Aiden for 3 years. Our married life appears to be ideal on the surface, with a lovely house, a solid career, and a stable financial status. Aiden is a lovely family man who is always loyal to me. As for myself, I am glad of my rising job, which allows me to exhibit my skills and find delight in my everyday work. We live with my father-in-law, Mr. John, who is in his late 60s and is strong and peaceful. He is an amazing individual whom I constantly admire. He not only serves as a father figure in our family but also as a mediator when Aiden and I fight. Our arguments are largely over having children. Aiden desires a more complete family with children's laughter, but I am not prepared. I want to focus on my job for a while and pursue my own goals before becoming a mother. As a result, this tale sparked ongoing debate. However, our disagreements never lessened our love for each other. Aiden was always patiently convincing, so I attempted to explain following each disagreement. My father-in-law kindly intervened and advised us. He constantly stressed that family is about understanding one another, everything may be solved gradually. Aiden and I owe him the ability to listen and give in to one another. I used to believe that our lives would continue on nicely like that, but one evening, everything changed dramatically. That day was as busy as any other. In the morning, I got up earlier than usual to cook breakfast for the entire family. Aiden preferred a basic breakfast, generally a slice of bread with a cup of black coffee. I also treated myself to a glass of warm milk to start the day. My father-in-law, Mr. John, continued to read the newspaper while sipping tea. Every morning, the air in the house is calm, warm, and full of lovely fragrances from the kitchen. After breakfast, I quickly prepared to go to work. My office work was not very demanding, but it needed a high degree of focus. I put on a white shirt, stylish pants, and light high heels, which increased my confidence. On my way to the office, I dropped by a neighboring coffee shop to have another cup of latte to treat myself before a long day. On that particular day, the workplace was busier than normal. The successive meetings left me with little time to recuperate. I attempted to respond to each email, report, and job on time. However, I always maintained a positive attitude since I realized that this work was more than just a responsibility, it was also my love. When the clock hit 5 p.m., I packed my paperwork and left the office. When I walked out on the street, the beautiful afternoon sunlight fanned out, making me feel at ease after a difficult day at work. I stopped into the grocery store near my house to get some fresh food. Today, I wanted to prepare a more exquisite supper than normal because it had been a long time since the entire family had the opportunity to sit down and eat together calmly. When I arrived home, I immediately headed to the kitchen. Aiden had just returned, and he grinned as he helped me prepare the table. The table was served with hot chicken soup, grilled fish, and aromatic stir-fried veggies. My father-in-law strolled out of the study, pleased to see supper. We sat down to eat together, conversing and laughing throughout. Despite some small disagreements regarding having children, family dinners remain the most cherished occasions for me. I didn't anticipate that, following the relatively tranquil dinner, an unforeseen occurrence would disrupt everything. After supper, I felt a little stuffy and went to the restroom. The cold water eased the anxiety in my heart. After the shower, I dressed in my favorite cream-colored silk dress with a back zipper. When I stood in front of the mirror to zip it up, I saw the zipper was stuck midway. I struggled with it but could not zip it up. I stepped out into the living room. I intended to approach Aiden for aid, but the living room was vacant. I turned and said, "Where are you, Aiden?" There was no response. My father-in-law, who was seated in a chair reading, glanced up. Aiden walked outside for a bit. "What's up?" I hesitated briefly before saying, my dress zipper is stuck. I can't pull it up. Can you assist me?" He put down the book and stood up. "Let me see." He moved closer, his gaze as serene as ever. I moved aside, gently bending my head to allow him better access to the zipper. His powerful, muscular fingers touched the zipper. "It appears to be trapped in this cloth," he replied, attempting to draw it up. However, when he applied force, the zipper fell away with a slight swish, and the silky dress slid down, leaving me transfixed. We were both bewildered. I didn't know how to respond, so I stood there like a statue. He hastily turned aside, his voice filled with sorrow. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." I quickly took up the garment, my hands quivering. "Dad, pull it over my body." "It's okay, Dad, it's only that my dress is loose," I said, not daring to glance up. He took a few steps back, hoping to maintain his composure. "Fix it yourself. Allow Aiden to return and beg him for aid." He turned around and immediately left, leaving me alone in the room. The environment felt stuffy and unpleasant. I felt my pulse racing. Humiliated and bewildered. I couldn't focus on anything that evening. Every time I remembered Mr. J's sorry expression, I felt heavier. I had no idea what he was thinking. And this made me even more concerned. Aiden arrived home late, as if he didn't realize what had transpired. He continued to smile and converse merrily, unaware that I was agitated. I tried to be normal, but I couldn't help but feel confused. In the days following the incident, I observed a difference in Mr. J. He no longer communicated with me in the same manner he used to, usually avoiding my gaze if we happened to cross paths in the home. This made me anxious, but I didn't know how to begin conversing to alleviate the discomfort. However, I occasionally caught him looking at me, his eyes seeking for something. At those moments, I swiftly turned aside, attempting to seem cool, although my heart was in turmoil. I could not tell what he was thinking, which made me even more concerned. I convinced myself that everything would pass and that time would repair the unseen fissures, but I was mistaken. That morning, I was fatigued. My throat hurt and my mind was racing. After taking my temperature, I realized I had a minor fever. Aiden had gone home early for work. I decided to take the day off to rest. My father-in-law remained at home, but as usual, he spent his time in the study reading books and newspapers or doing his own thing. I lay in bed for a long time, feeling so exhausted that all I could do was attempt to sleep. But because the room was too hot, I decided to go out to the living room to get some cold air. I was dressed in modest pajamas, my hair free, and my face pale from sickness. When I entered the living room, I noticed Mr. John seated in a chair, gazing closely at his phone screen. I murmured hello quietly, but he did not respond. Instead, he raised his head to stare at me. His eyes were no longer the serene ones I was used to. "Are you not feeling well?" he said. His voice louder than normal. "Yes, I have a small fever, so I'm taking the day off," I said, trying to maintain a regular demeanor. He didn't say anything else, only nodded. But his gaze remained fixated on me, as if looking for something in my look. That feeling made me feel really nervous. I was going to walk outside to escape the stressful environment. But as I turned around, I heard him shout, "Leah, come here. I have something to tell you." I paused. My heart was squeezed with an unusual sensation. Mr. J stood up, his eyes determined, and looked directly at me. The air in the room got thick. I could feel my heart racing and my palms sweaty. "Leah, you are stunning," he whispered, his voice low and resonating in the solitude. I froze, feeling as though my legs had lost their strength. My entire body felt freezing. Each word he spoke was like a dagger slashing through my heart. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I said, shivering as my voice strangled. But he did not respond. Quickly, he moved closer, and each step made me feel as if the space around me was narrowing. His eyes fixed on me, not moving for a second. He addressed me, "Leah," in a calm but firm tone. "Could you just let me see you again?" I stood there, unable to believe what I had just heard. My eyes widened, searching for signs that he was kidding, but he wasn't. His stare was so intense that it left me dumbfounded. "Dad!" I almost yelled, attempting to maintain my control. "How can you say such things? Don't you feel terrible for Aiden?" He hesitated, a confused expression on his face, but his gaze never left mine. "Leah, I have no idea what happened to me," he murmured quietly, his voice begging. "Since that day, I've been unable to stop thinking about you." I walked back, attempting to maintain my distance. "Dad, what you stated is completely incorrect. You are ruining the bond in this family. I'm your daughter-in-law." "I know," he interjected, his voice rising but immediately softening. "I understand, but I can't control this sensation." "Dad!" I yelled, my voice trembling and my eyes tearing. "I do not want to hear it anymore. I could not comprehend how you could say such things. I can't believe this." Mr. John stood still. His eyes bent to the floor as if fighting a power within himself. The air in the room was thick and stifling. After a lengthy pause, he groaned, slumping his shoulders and speaking softly, but tremblingly, to me. "Leah, I'm not sure why things turned out this way. I am sorry, but I can no longer lie to myself." I stood there, puzzled and panicked, but my feet felt locked down, unable to move. He moved closer, each step deliberate but heavy, his gaze locked on me, full of conflict and an unnameable anguish. I stepped back, but the tiny table behind me blocked my path, leaving me with no way out. "I know this is bad," he said quietly but clearly. "Yet, this emotion worries me. I do not want to harm you, but I haven't stopped thinking about you since that day." My heart was racing so fiercely it seemed like it was about to explode in my chest. "Dad, do you understand what you are saying? We cannot do this. This is incorrect. It's going to wreck everything." I yelled, my voice breaking with anguish. He paused in front of me, his eyes filled with grief. I understand, Leah. I am aware of all of this, but I also realize I can't go back. Do you feel it too? His question penetrated deep into my psyche like a scalpel. I shook my head, attempting to reject it, but my body refused to follow my thoughts. His eyes were begging, not with words, but with a silent plea. Pressure, but with a sense of helplessness and vulnerability. I'm not sure what happened at that moment. The entire room appeared to blur, all sound seemed to vanish. When he stepped forward, the space between us was nearly gone. I did not withdraw, all of the invisible barriers between me and him had vanished in an instant. When it was all over, I sat in the chair. My hands trembling violently, my heart continued to pound, but the emotion was one of intense terror rather than contention. I could not believe what had just occurred. Mr. J stood in front of me. His eyes filled with amazement. Leah, he began, but his voice strangled. No, I said, my voice shaking. Do not say anything. Do not say anything more. I stood up. Despite feeling as if my legs had no power left. I tried to move fast towards the door. As my hand reached the doorknob, he spoke again, his voice filled with sorrow. Leah, I apologize. I'm very sorry. I didn't look around, I just silently left the room, tears streaming down my cheeks, overwhelmed with remorse and despair. I didn't know how to face myself, Aiden. Or John after what had just happened. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. Images, sensations, and phrases invaded my thoughts. I wondered how things had gotten this far. How do we confront reality from here? I had no response, and maybe neither did John. In the days that followed, I was in continual pain. The idea of telling Aiden everything persisted in my thoughts. But every time I considered it, I felt powerless. I knew that if Aiden found out, his relationship with my father would never be the same again. That special father-son bond would be shattered forever. I tried to hold everything within, hiding my grief and shame, but it just made me feel more trapped. I realized the only thing I could do was escape this place. Only that way would I prevent things from worsening and save this family from collapse. I began making arrangements. But I tried to maintain a positive attitude, as if everything were normal. I didn't want Aiden to realize anything was wrong until I mustered the guts to express what I wanted. Every day, I prepared breakfast, cleaned the house, and smiled as if everything was okay. But in my heart, I'd made my decision. One evening, after dinner, I waited in the living room for an opportunity to talk. Aiden, I whispered gently, attempting to keep my voice calm, I have something to tell you. Aiden glanced up at me. His eyes wide with anxiety. What is wrong? Is there something wrong? I took a long breath, attempting to relax myself. I think we should go out. We may begin a fresh life someplace else. I believe it would benefit both of us. Aiden halted, his brow wrinkled. Why would you suddenly want to do that? We've been doing good here. Is there something wrong? I shook my head and tried to grin reassuringly. Nothing. It is just that I wanted us to have some space, and I believe it is time to depart. Aiden placed his hand on my shoulder and said seriously, Leah, I know something is wrong. You do not need to hide that from me. Tell me what is wrong. Before I could respond, John descended the steps. He'd overheard the entire exchange. Leah is correct, JN remarked, his voice quiet but forceful. Aiden, I believe you two should go. You and Leah require some space to establish your lives. I do not want to keep you two here forever. Aiden gazed at him, his eyes wide with amazement. But, Dad, I do not want to leave you. I believe we can still live happily together. Mr. John grinned and touched Aiden's shoulder. You do not need to worry about me. I am fine. You and Leah should decide what is best for your future. Aiden remained silent for a long time, his gaze gradually relaxing. Eventually, he nodded. If you say so, Dad, I'll agree. But I shall pay you a visit frequently. I didn't say anything but lowered my head, feeling both sad and relieved. I understood why Mr. J helped me. This was his method of making atonement and preventing the family from splitting apart. When night fell, I stood in my room, staring out the window with a hollow sensation. I knew leaving was the correct decision, but the sorrow and guilt would follow me wherever I went. My tale taught me a valuable lesson: every error begins with a minor boundary breach. Sometimes, all it takes is a fleeting moment of carelessness or weakness to have unexpected results. None of us are flawless, but it is crucial to recognize and remedy faults. Always value the ties you have, especially with your family. Family is more than just a refuge. It is also a responsibility to preserve. One bad move may demolish all we've created over the years. So, stay vigilant, know your limitations, and don't allow your emotions to get the better of you. For individuals in a similar circumstance, my recommendation is to choose the action that does the least harm to everyone. Leaving is not always an escape. It may be the greatest way to safeguard those you care about. Learn to let go because it not only frees you but also allows you to maintain the good principles you wish to safeguard. I left that place, bringing both pain and significant learning. Life is a long journey, and I promised myself that I would never go wrong again. My narrative stops here. What occurred taught me the most valuable lesson of my life: the importance of family and responsibility. Thank you for listening, and I hope my tale helps you avoid similar mistakes.